Hello and welcome to the Stinking Albatross Podcast. My name is Alissa Golob, and once again I am here with my co-host, Scott Hayward.
Hey Alissa, how's it going?
Not too bad. Now, Scott is taking vacation this week, so you're actually at home. So if it looks like he's in an interrogation room, he's just in his parents' basement.
Isn't that one and the same?
Yeah.
At least it was when I was growing up.
How's your time at home so far?
It is great. Actually, I want to show everyone something here because I'm quite impressed by it. So I'm going to take my little lantern here. And this wall right here is an accent wall that my dad built a few years ago using wood from an old granary just west of Brandon. So the granary is like over 100 years old. Used to be red. As you can see, there's a bit of a reddish tinge there. And he had taken the boards off, treated them, got them all cleaned up and used that as an accent wall in his basement. So I think you've seen it a few times.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Your dad is a silver fox and a handyman.
Well, in addition to being a funeral director, he got when he graduated from high school, he got some sort of carpentry diploma or something like that as well. So
he could make the coffins and then put them people
exactly
in there.
Right. It's vertical alignment with the supply chain for his business. Actually, when I was in grade 5, I used to help him on the weekends make cremation boxes. And so people would ask, kind of like you're like my teacher in grade 5, how did everyone do this weekend? What were you up to? And all the other kids would say, all my friends would say, well, my dad and I, we would toss around the football, or we went to a movie, or we went for a bike ride. And then she got to me and I said, well, I make cremation boxes, and that's why my hands are all calloused up. And
and did you go to prom in like the back of your dad's like funeral vehicle?
Yeah. One time at soccer, we were done soccer in the spring, and we took a bunch of the guys back home after the game, after the win, and so we all went in the back of the van. It's just a regular caravan that they had, but it's called the removal van. So it's set up so that you can transport the deceased from place to place. It's like a work van, and they were all asking, like, why are there no seats back here? Like, what's happening? And then I said, oh, it's a removal van for dead bodies. Close the door. Okay, bye.
Oh,
man. Fun.
How are you not bullied?
Who's going to bully the funeral director?
You can make bodies disappear.
Number 1. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So I bet your parents, though, were happy to see your daughter, and
I'm sure. Yeah, no, she's the star of the show. No one cares about my wife and I being here, but yeah, they had all kinds of toys ready to go for the baby, which is great. She's loving life here. She met a bunch of family right off the bat, and surprisingly, she was pretty good about it. Our daughter's 10 months, so the last couple months she's been a little shy. Sometimes gets upset when new people come to visit us back home in Ontario, but this time so far she's been pretty good, pretty excited to meet people. So yeah, it was good. We flew into Winnipeg on Saturday. No issues.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask, how was Toronto Pearson?
Yeah, there's no issues at Pearson. We flew WestJet, which I think makes a huge difference. We got there pretty early. We got there 3 hours before our flight, which normally in the past I never would do. You're lucky it's 3 minutes. And we got through security just fine. I have a Nexus card, so my wife and my daughter came with me. Not that the other security lines in the WestJet terminal were terribly busy anyway, and they had a bunch of them going, and everything was just normal, except for, the wearing of masks. But there was a few people that weren't really wearing masks, even on the plane, and no one really said anything. So when I got to Winnipeg, I took mine off when we got to the baggage carousel, and more than half the people in Manitoba in the airport were wearing masks. Although I will say that when we got off the elevator to go to the baggage carousel area, I did notice there were like 100 different pieces of luggage just randomly kind of off to the side against the wall, and it was roped off, and it said like Air Canada special luggage whatever. So I was like, thank God that we fly exclusively WestJet. So it's been good. It's been good to be back. Terrible huge thunderstorm last night. I've never heard thunder like that before. My poor wife, I know you and I were discussing this, When we were here at Christmas, she experienced minus 50 wind chill, and the other day it was over 50 on the humidex. So she got to experience that 100-degree swing that we have in Manitoba. A lot of people, like in Ontario, think that's always cold here, but you can attest that it can get quite a bit hotter here.
Oh yeah,
back
and the
in Ontario.
Mosquitoes are terrible.
Oh yeah, it's our provincial bird. So
yeah.
What were you guys up to this weekend?
Well, I went to Stampede. That was pretty good. I was very proud of myself because I'm currently doing intermittent fasting and there's fried food everywhere. And I did allow myself, I only had one mini donut, like not a case, just one singular mini donut.
Aaron was convinced that there was like a specific mini donut place, and he's like, this is the one, and we went there and we got like a bucket of them, and he's like, no, these aren't the ones. Like, okay, whatever. Then we saw another one. It's like, this is the one, and we went there, got like another giant bucket. He's like, oh, this isn't the one. So I think between all of us, we had probably like a bucket of mini donuts each. So
that's true. Yeah,
huge reduction this year.
One. Yeah. So I was very proud of myself about that, and then we went to the chuck wagons, and then the Indian bareback relay, which was, like we've talked about before, awesome. And then the evening show, which wasn't as good as it has been in previous years, but Dean Brody performed, who's a Canadian country music star. And then they also had my favorite part was this drone show. So they had all these drones in the sky and they made different shapes and movements and stuff. It was really cool. And then, of course, the fireworks were insane. I've never seen so many fireworks. It's like overwhelming. And we sat in an area where they were right directly in front of us. Like Aaron and I kind of looked at each other thinking a piece was going to hit us. They were so close to us. But overall, it was really good. So that was the main highlight of my weekend for sure.
That's a pretty good weekend. I think we've had 2 good weekend updates in a row.
Actually done stuff.
Yeah, we got to keep it rolling here.
Yeah. Well, today's podcast was sponsored by LaRosse Media, so check them out. They do videos and documentaries, all sorts of media work, so please check them out at larossemedia.com. Thank you so much for your sponsorship. So, I mean, speaking of masks on planes, there was a video circulating recently of Justin Trudeau on a train, maskless, and yet there's still mask mandates on trains and planes, which is just, again, another example of hypocrisy from the political elite. But I do think that things are changing, and we're going to do our first segment of this podcast called Headlines. So we're going to talk about some top 3 headlines that have been circulating in Canada. And the first one is about a Catholic nurse who won a right to be exempted from the COVID vaccine. And so this is from the National Post, and this was in Ontario. And they said a Catholic nurse in Ontario had a right to a religious exemption from the COVID-19 vaccination because of the quite remote link between the shots and aborted fetuses. An arbitrator has ruled in one of the first legal pronouncements on this issue, which I think is, of course, very promising. I think there's going to be tons more lawsuits coming down the pipe, and this is just one of many. And I'm glad that, especially with regards to religious reasons, and of course with the link to aborted fetal stem cells, that, you know, she was able to win her case and hopefully go back to her job.
Yeah, I think we're going to start seeing this now, right? Because it's been close to a year since a lot of these vaccine mandates have come into place. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there might be people out there who are watching who support getting vaccinated against SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19 and, mm-hmm. You know, think that they are efficacious and all this other stuff. And, you know, that's all well and fine. But mm-hmm. I even think people who think that way, there's a lot of them who don't think that it should be mandatory or forced upon people, whether they be, you know, in the public sector for healthcare, in the case of this nurse, or education, or retail, or whatever. It's kind of always interesting to me that how these people being especially frontline healthcare workers were our heroes in 2020, mm-hmm. and then all of a sudden in 2021, they're dismissed with no pay, fired with no severance, and all this other stuff. So this is all going to start coming full circle, I think, eventually, and we're starting to see it already right now. I was a little bit surprised that kind of the first ruling on this in Canada, so to speak. And it's not really a ruling, right? This is through arbitration, which is a different legal process to avoid litigation. Occurred in all places in Ontario and in Sudbury. So yeah, I think it is interesting. I noticed in the in the article that she's a public health nurse, so she was actually administering the vaccine to people who wanted to get it. So it's not like she was, I would say, what's the word I would be looking for? She wasn't being difficult about it. Like it sounded like she was still willing to do a lot of aspects of her job. Just she herself, for whatever reason, didn't want to get the vaccine. One other thing I also noticed from the article that I thought was interesting, and I think this might be for a future discussion, just in terms of where kind of conservative politics are going. And I'm not saying that this lady is necessarily, conservative politically, but her union was actually backing her up against the public health authority.
Yeah, that's the one very weird thing that's come to light with regards to the pandemic, is that a lot of unions have backed up a lot of these fired workers over the vaccine. I'm not really sure why. It would be interesting to know, or to kind of talk to someone who knows a little bit more about unions, because that seems very odd. Usually we're at odds with unions constantly, so to have them on our sides is unexpected.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool to have a guest on from maybe two, one from a private sector union and one from a public sector union, about how, especially regarding the vaccine mandates, how the different unions kind of came to different positions on it. And I think it'd be also fascinating to see how that played within the NDP, right? Because the NDP legally is a partnership between the CCF, the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, and the other CLC, the Canadian Labour Congress, which is an umbrella organization of a variety of public and private sector unions, because I think that there would be a great divide within the NDP politically on vaccine mandates, whether it be in caucus or amongst their union supporters.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's good to see. It's good to see unions doing what unions are supposed to do, whether you're pro-union or not. I think you can agree that unions are supposed to back up their workers when their employers overstep their bounds.
Yeah. And so like I said, I hope that there are more lawsuits, and there are actually more lawsuits coming to light. There's 19 firefighters who are suing the city of Calgary for $38 million over their vaccine mandates. From True North Centre, nearly 24 firefighters are taking the Calgary Fire Department to court over allegations that the city's vaccine mandate violated their human rights. They're demanding $38 million in damages. And the leader is a guy named Stephen Daboff, who's leading the lawsuit, who said that there's something tyrannical about these mandates. We can't identify everybody behind it, but what we do is hold people accountable, like the fire chief, politicians, city managers. Those people are responsible for their actions. And this specific guy worked for 2 decades as a firefighter, was forced to resign from the department in December of 2021.
Yeah, I read that story as well. It looked like there are 19 of them suing for $38 million in damages. So so this is interesting, because in the arbitration case that we just discussed with that nurse, public health nurse, mind you, up in Sudbury, the arbitrator did not award or didn't talk about awarding damages or whether or not should be reinstated. And we don't really know if the public health nurse even asked to be reinstated.
Yeah.
I mean, she could have done something else. Maybe it's more lucrative. Maybe she was at that time of her life where she was close to retirement anyway. But in this case, with these firefighters, they're suing for quite significant damages, $38 million. And now I don't know if that arbitration, I'm not a lawyer, in Sudbury would be considered precedent, but it certainly wouldn't hurt their case here. And yeah, I'm sure there's more than just that one firefighter that has spent that long, like over 2 decades in service to the city of Calgary for fighting fires. So that's another big one. And I think there was another story, Alissa, also from Alberta, with the Alberta Health Services getting rid of their vaccine mandates. It sounds like completely, right?
Yeah, it was stupidly they had gotten rid of them for their public healthcare workers, but they still had to have it for new hires, which was very frustrating, because we have a mutual friend who wanted to become a midwife out here and wasn't able to do that because of the new hire situation.
She would have been your midwife.
Probably. She was going to work at the midwifery clinic that my midwife works at, who also was off for a little while because of vaccine mandates, then back on, and it was a whole whirlwind while I was pregnant, which was a whole other story. But so yeah, the AHS has rescinded its COVID-19 immunization policy for its workers. Of course, the NDP are screaming to the top of their lungs out here, Rachel Notley, which makes me happy. So all of these things are very good news stories, and we hope that in terms of COVID specifically, and we hope that they continue to work in our favor.
Yeah, the one cool thing from the Alberta Health Service story is that they noted, this is Alberta Health Services, mind you, noted that they're noticing that the vaccinations, the shots are becoming less and less efficacious.
Yes.
They said, for the first strains, the shots are quite efficacious, which is probably true. Like I probably wouldn't doubt that. But they're saying that as SARS-CoV-2 develops, it morphs, it changes, right? It's not the same strain. And as more and more strains develop, of course, each more viral strain is less lethal, less fatal. But that means that the vaccinations aren't as efficacious against them. I think I saw one recent numbers from May and June in British Columbia, where the province released numbers saying that proportionately there were more people who died in British Columbia in May and June from SARS-CoV-2, which wouldn't be that many people anyway, who were fully vaccinated as opposed to those who were not vaccinated. So it's interesting that the health authority in Alberta, which covers, by the way, most provinces have multiple regional health authorities within the province. In Alberta, it's just one health authority for the entire province. It's interesting that they noted that they're noticing that the vaccinations are becoming less and less efficacious against COVID-19.
Yeah. And on that note, headline number 2 is one of my favorites from Narcity. It says 9 memes and tweets about Justin Trudeau's new haircut that will make you spit your morning coffee. Did you see Trudeau's new haircut, Scott Hayward?
You mean Prime Minister Lloyd Christmas?
I mean, I never thought I'd be talking about Justin Trudeau's hair on this podcast, given that there are so many more important topics, but it was worth a mention just because of how crazy viral it went and how hilarious it really is.
I don't know what the guy's thinking or the barber's thinking. Like, I know a lot of like conservatives make fun, like, oh, Justin Trudeau, he's just a guy with like hair and that's all that, and sometimes they'll go as far as to say that's all that female voters care about or whatever. Yeah. And I don't know if that's true or not. I don't think it's entirely true, but one thing I will admit, like I don't think he's a bad looking guy in general. And yeah, he's 50 years old and has a full head of hair, or did have a full head of hair. Now he's got like a weird kind of mix between, Lloyd Christmas, who of course is the character for Dumb and Dumber. Yeah, that Jim Carrey played, and Mark Zuckerberg. Like it's this weird kind of, they had a baby. And Pee Wee Herman is like somewhere in there. It's just, I don't know. It's maybe he gets super hot up there, right? With all that hair, it's probably so deep now into his brain that he's got to cut it down. And maybe he did it himself. Inflation, things are expensive. That's right. Yeah, maybe he lost a bet. Yeah. I don't know what happened there. But. So if you haven't seen that headline or that article in Narcity, check it out, because there are memes and tweets that are absolutely hilarious. And Trudeau got a haircut. That's going to make it in our headlines this week. But usually what that means, like historically, is when Trudeau changes something about his hair or his facial hair, that we're coming on to an election, right? So like he got his haircut and everything prior to 2019. But I mean, that was a what do you call it? Not a booked election, but it's a fixed. That was a fixed election date. And then last year, that was a big story in July of 2021, was that he got rid of the COVID hair. He got all nice and short. The rumors were from Liberal staffers that they were doing a bunch of preparatory campaign videos and pictures and posters and for brochures and all that type of stuff. Which is probably true, because it's eventually what happened. So, although I can't imagine trying to fight an election campaign with a haircut like that. So now that we mention it, people are going to message us being like, "Yeah, wait for you to speak, Scott. Like, look at your hair." I mean, he might have lost the female vote, but he definitely gained the vote of all the people living in their parents' basements. So, you mean all the people that Pierre Poliver talks about? He's going after the Pierre Poliver vote.
Now, our third headline and final headline for this segment is about Prince Harry. And I wish that Dr. Colin Miller was back because we could ask him about this. But yesterday at the United Nations, Prince Harry called out the rolling back of constitutional rights in the United States as part of a global assault on democracy and freedom. So Prince Harry was speaking at the UN. It was Nelson Mandela International Day, and he talked about everything woke that you could possibly mention. He talked about the pandemic, climate change, disinformation at the expense of many, war in Ukraine, and rolling back of constitutional rights in the US, which obviously means overturning Roe v. Wade. Which is just funny from start to finish coming from him because it's the biggest hypocritical statement you can think of, since that in the last 2 years, it's been widely reported that he's flown on like over 21 private jets. When he went to the Queen's birthday, the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, like it was a month ago or maybe a few weeks ago, he went on a private jet. He went on a private jet that is estimated to have racked up 30 times the carbon footprint of a commercial flight. Like, all of these politicians who are flying around the world with their private jets, not driving electric cars, preaching to us about climate change and about the environment is just so incredibly rich. You can't even say anything about it because it's so embarrassing and hypocritical. And just with regards to like the crossover between that and like abortion and family planning, I don't know if you remember this, but I think a few years ago, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle got an award by the pro-abortion organization Population Matters, which aims to limit the world population. And they got an award for being a role model for other families by deciding to limit their family size. So a spokesperson for the organization said in choosing and publicly declaring their intention to limit their family to 2, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are helping to ensure a better future for their children and providing a role model for other families. Having a smaller family reduces our impact on the earth and provides a better chance for all our children, their children, and future generations to flourish on a healthy plane. No pun intended, he continued.
Thank God that the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, who are Prince William and Princess Catherine, Kate Middleton, thank God that they've had like enough children to inherit the throne. And
they said they want more too. Like
and she has terrible pregnancies. Like she gets like what's the do you remember the
HG? It's like where you're sick the whole time.
Yeah. Like it's not great. And they have such a lovely family. They were the stars of the show, Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee. And it's interesting to see the two brothers just diverge so completely over the years between the Duke of Cambridge, who's in line for the throne after the Prince of Wales, being Prince Charles, and the Duke of Sussex, being Prince Harry. You know, the Duke of Cambridge, up until I think shortly after he got married, he was in the Royal Air Force, I believe. He literally went to go and dive into stormy seas off of the coast of Wales to go and save fishermen whose boats capsized and whatnot. As part of search and rescue teams, there have been people in the United Kingdom who literally were saved as individuals by His Royal Highness the Duke of Cambridge himself. So it's just a completely different divergence on just almost everything. Never mind just like on abortion and like family planning and stuff like that. Just their personalities and their sacrifice and just their sense of duty. And thankfully, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have had those children and those heirs that can inherit the throne, because I think they're if you're a monarchist, which I mean, Dr. Callum, who was on our show, is, and I am myself, and you know, when you look at the consternation of the presidency of the United States constantly, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat in there, you know, you look over to Canada and to the United Kingdom, and our head of state is a monarch, and monarchs who, mind you, have generally stayed out of politics, which obviously Prince Harry is not doing, and you do have that from the Duke of Cambridge. So I think. Yeah, this is just another huge diversion point there.
From my perspective, it doesn't seem like Prince Harry wants to. It seems,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be one of those people who piles up on her too much, but it does seem like a drastic influence from Meghan Markle, who's this Hollywood, actress who likes to get politically involved, despite her hypocrisy, because he never was like this prior to marrying her. And now all of a sudden he's just like, woke this. What's the issue of the day? How can I speak about this? And it's to me, it's always very concerning and confusing, just outright confusing when, someone like Meghan Markle has a miscarriage and writes about it openly and honestly in the New York Times in an open letter, talking about the pain of losing her unborn child, showing the humanity of her fetus, and then simultaneously speaking out about how she's happy and pleased that Ireland decriminalized abortion, and having, her husband go to the UN and talk about rolling back constitutional rights, which isn't even accurate. So it is very confusing. It's similar to when I was pregnant with my first child and I had to do a pregnancy course with a woman, and it was during COVID, so I went to her house. We were in the backyard and I had to use the washroom, as pregnant women do, and I had to walk through her living room to get to the washroom, and on her kitchen table, there was a laptop, and on the laptop, there was a sticker, and the sticker said, "I support Planned Parenthood." And this is a woman who was talking to me about the beauty and amazing ventures of the baby coming down, and how you give birth and the humanity of the baby and how miraculous it is and how your body all works together, and just like the most pro-life class you could think of, and then simultaneously supporting an organization which 97% of what they do is abortion. So I don't understand the disconnect. It's cognitive dissonance at its finest. And like I said, like you said, I'm glad that they're not next to take over the throne. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, we can say God save the Queen for sure. So thankfully she held out that long too, so we can see the differences.
Yeah. And on that note, we'll be right back.
Nature communicates with us in a universal language. The sunrise starts a new day. The sunset marks our accomplishments.
The most beautiful communication is where the speaker and the listener match perfectly and understand the same message.
Your future audience is waiting to hear from you. What message do you need to share?
At LaRosse Media, we fashion beautiful communications through our professional video production services and marketing strategies.
Create your own most beautiful message. Visit larossemedia.com and be sure to check out our extended service options.
Dream, produce, market, succeed with LaRosse Media.
Serving Canada from coast to coast to coast.
And we're back. So our final segment for this podcast is another top 10. Last week we did top 10 comedy shows, and this week we're going to do top 10 moments on the road. Now, these can be any type of moments, from funny stories to things we ate. It really is up to us. But for those of you who don't know, Scott and I have traveled across Canada multiple times to do presentations to pro-life supporters, to church groups, to build our database so that we can have enough people in each riding and actually win nominations and elections. And the only way we can do that is by not only recruiting people to the cause, but also educating them on how a nomination works and how the political process works, and kind of get them enthusiastic and excited about that. And we've tried many different ways to do this, and we found by far the most effective way is to get in your car, get on a plane, and actually speak to people face to face. We're still not even remotely close to where we want to be, but we have successfully built up a very strong database since we were created in 2016. And, among that, during that time, we have traveled literally from one end of the country to the other. And we have met a lot of people and have a lot of stories. And so we're just going to talk about, the top 10 things that stuck out in our minds since we've been doing that. So Scott, you want to take it away at number 10?
Sure. Number 10. Let me just take a quick peek at my list here. Okay. So This is actually our very first road trip when we
Okay.
first started RightNow, and we headed from Toronto up to Ottawa for the Manning Center conference. And it was February. I don't know if you remember or not, Alissa, but we were staying in Manotick, which was just south of Ottawa there.
Yeah.
And I think you were sleeping at the time, and we took your vehicle, I think.
Okay.
You took your teeny tiny little, it was an Echo, right?
Yeah, Toyota Echo, yeah.
Yeah, and we were coming off the 401 to head onto the 416, right, to go north, then to the 417 to go into Ottawa. And the further and further away we got from Toronto, the more and more snow there was from a snowstorm that came earlier that day. And we veered off of the 401 to get onto 416, and then we just hit a snowpack. And I thought that we for sure were going to get stuck in that small little teeny tiny Echo on our very first road trip ever. And I thought, okay, if we get stuck, like, this is a bad sign. But we didn't get stuck. The Toyota barely made it through. I don't know if you remember that or not. I think you were sleeping in the front.
Yeah, I think you were sleeping. At all.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Like I had to get going. Like, it's not all-wheel drive or anything, so I had to be pretty careful so we can actually get on the highway up to Ottawa. But I put that as number 10 because that was our very first road trip together after starting RightNow.
Of course, your number 10 would be something about the weather.
You sound like my wife. Yeah, she says people from Western Canada just always talk about the weather. Weather. So, what about you?
My number 10 it's sort of broad, but it's eating food that belongs to that particular province or town. Yeah. I had a Nanaimo bar in Nanaimo, which was absolutely amazing. I'm obsessed with the Nanaimo bars. And it just tastes way better than if you got it at the store or even made it homemade. They do it so well there. So something like that. Seafood in Lunenburg. I don't know if you remember that. We did Thanksgiving there, and we had different types of seafood throughout the weekend. Sushi in BC is always amazing. Like the salmon sashimi just melts in your mouth like butter. And remember in Thunder Bay, they had the Thunder Bay Persians, those like little weird donuts with the pink icing.
Yep.
And people in people wherever we stay are always very enthusiastic and excited to show us the food that's, that belongs to that particular town or city. So I always enjoy it and find it interesting. So that's my number 10.
That's the best part about traveling across Canada is you get to, especially in the small towns and the small cities, you get to taste all these like specific like little beers or drinks or food or whatever the case might be that are specific to those places. And the problem is that then you know too much and then you crave it. And it's like, well, I'm not going to drive 12 hours to Thunder. I might, but I probably shouldn't for Persian. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What are we? Number 9 here, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So one time I was trying to catch a plane out of Ottawa when I was living in Ottawa. This was just before the 2019 election. And I was heading out to, I forget where I was heading out to, but I was heading out somewhere and I forgot my wallet. And I always travel with my passport so I could get onto the plane just fine, but then I would have no money to do anything. Yeah. Which is an issue. So I called up my roommate who hadn't gone to work yet because it was an early morning flight. And he went all through our condo. He went all through the Sky Palace to see if there was my wallet. He couldn't find it. And so I was like, well, maybe this is the case. I don't know for sure. So do you mind going down to the parking garage and looking in the console and seeing if it's there? Because that's where I put it. 'Cause I have a George Costanza wallet and I don't like to sit on it when I drive. And sure enough, there it was. And 2 buddies of mine, Michael and David, who you both know, they broke the law and sped all the way out of downtown to the airport. So I had to leave security, grab my wallet, get back into security. And they were going to close the gate in literally less than a minute, and I made it onto my flight. So I always forget stuff. I have to write lists down, and even then, sometimes I forget where I put the list. Yeah. So that's
a huge lifesaver for sure.
Yeah, I lose my wallet all the time. So. What was your number 9?
So back in the 2015, prior to the 2015 election, for those of you who listened to our podcast with Jonathan Van Maren, we talked quite a bit about us going on the road for the No to Trudeau tour. And we basically had this bus, which we covered, that said No to Trudeau and his big face on it. And we drove from one end of the country to the other. We spoke to different people, groups of people, to recruit them to volunteer for their pro-life candidate, deliver pamphlets, do different things throughout the election to try and make Trudeau lose originally in the very first election he ran in as Liberal leader. And so when we were driving through Montreal, we stopped so I could take a picture. So right in the heart of Montreal, I took a picture in front of the huge No to Trudeau bus wearing my Toronto Maple Leafs jersey. And it's one of my favorite pictures. Sorry to all the Quebecois who are listening, but I think it was hilarious. People were honking and looking at us, and perhaps there were fingers that were waved, but I didn't care. It's one of my favorite pictures.
There are a lot of people who are Canadians fans who are not Quebecois, especially on the East Coast. I know it's on the East Coast, they're either Bruins fans or Canadians fans.
Yeah.
They're kind of like Leafs fans. You'll find them sprinkled everywhere. So
yeah, here in Calgary, if you go to a Flames versus Leafs game, half the arena are Leafs fans because there's so many Ontarians that live here now. But yeah. What's your number 8?
Number 8. So this was by myself. For our job, sometimes we have to travel by our lonesome. Alissa, I know you went out to BC a few times through the mountains by yourself, out to Vancouver and back. And I've gone the other way to the East Coast and back a couple of times by myself. So this was one of the very first times I went to Nova Scotia by myself. And it was the beginning of February. So I was heading out there for the Progressive Conservative Party of Nova Scotia's annual general meeting, which is always held in Halifax. And it was late at night because it's a long drive, and it's February, so it's dark early, and it was raining because that's what happens in the Maritimes. In winter, there's more rain than snow. And I was too cheap to pay the $1 toll fee to just stay on the highway like a normal person. So I took all the back roads to try to get to Halifax, and I got lost. And there was I was talking to my buddy Moose on the phone, and all of a sudden there was no more lights, there was no more houses, and then like the back road kind of ended, and then right in front of me was like the sea, and it was not ideal. I got back on the highway. I didn't pay the fee. I didn't pay the toll fee. I was able to avoid the fee. But I got to Halifax just fine. But it was an
near-death experience.
Detour.
Yeah.
What's that?
Potentially a near-death experience, and nobody would have found you.
That could have been you. You could have got the insurance money for RightNow, and
the $300.
I made it out there. It's all good.
All right. Yeah. My number 8 is also when I was on the No to Trudeau. Quite a few of these are No to Trudeau just because of how massive it was. But I don't know if you've ever been here, but when we went to Newfoundland, we went to Cape Spear, which is the most eastern point in North America. And it is absolutely epic. It will always stick out in my mind. There's these massive kind of mountain edges, and you can sit at the edge and you look into the ocean, and the waves are just crashing like thunderous waves. There's really cool lighthouses around, and it was pretty amazing. And one of my favorite things about going to Newfoundland in general, and even knowing about Cape Spear, because I'm not very good at geography and I had never heard of it, was that the guy who was organizing our presentation and picked us up from the airport was not only a taxi driver, but he also had his bachelor's degree in like tourism. And my favorite part is he had a disability parking pass. So he literally knew everything about Newfoundland, where to go, and had the best parking spots. So he was a great supporter, and he told us so much information, and we were able to see so many things in Newfoundland because of it. And that was my first and only time so far going there, and I really hope to go back because the people are amazing, and it's really quite an experience out there for sure.
That sounds really cool. Producer Dave can probably do a fact check on this, who unfortunately isn't with us here today. But I'm pretty
he's
sure...
He's not dead. He's just not on the podcast. Yeah.
He's dead to me. He's not here today.
Yeah.
He usually like whispers in our ear.
Yeah. Don't give away our secrets.
I'm pretty sure that Cape Spear and maybe the entirety of the island of Newfoundland is actually closer to Europe than it is to Vancouver. And that's just how massive Canada is, North America is. So that's kind of cool right there. Number 7, this one actually involves you. And we were driving back, I think, from our epic road trip out west back in 2017, where we actually fundraised so we can actually have an organization and salary and buy groceries and whatnot. For those of you who don't know, when we first started Right Now, we started with, like Alissa said, we had lots of people in our database by doing this. But we started with 2 people in our database in $0 a month. So for the first couple of years, Alissa and I would only take $1,000 a month to pay for everything: rent, food, gas, all that type of stuff. And so we went on this huge road trip in the autumn of 2017 to do some fundraising to say, hey, like, if you like what we're doing, because there's a lot of people out there that loved what we were doing. If you like what you're doing, like, we need to buy groceries, and we need to pay for housing, and we need to, have a little bit of savings. And so we went on this huge road trip. And then, so we were coming back, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but we were coming, I think, through Cochrane in Northern Ontario. And we had spent, we went all the way out. We went all the way out to the West Coast and back. And we're talking like 5,000 kilometers round. And we went through the United States, up, down, all the way to Vancouver. And now we're all the way back. And we were so close. I think we were still coming to Toronto that day. So it was early in the day. And we hadn't got a ticket. Nothing bad in that regard had happened. And you got pulled over for speeding.
Such a bad ticket. Yeah.
And I remember, I don't remember if I said it aloud, but I was kind of like, yeah, deserves right for speeding. Haha, you got caught. And then he asked for the registration for the vehicle, which of course was back in my apartment in Toronto. So I got it as well. So it's hard to make it through those road trips without getting tickets. I'll say that much.
Yeah. I thought your number 7 was going to be the same as mine, because mine is, I think we were driving through Ontario, through the Canadian way to out west. I think it was to Manitoba, and it between like between like Thunder Bay and Winnipeg, it's like nothingness, basically. I think that's where I'm thinking of, or maybe it's before Thunder Bay, but there's no cell reception. We ran out of gas, and we desperately needed a gas station, and there were no gas station, and there were no gas stations. And it was dark, and we came across a closed gas station, and Scott literally had to knock on this guy's door to open up the gas station, and paid him $20 so we could fill the tank, or else we would have been sleeping on the side of the road, and God knows what would have happened, because we were in the middle of nowhere. And that was my number 7.
Yeah, that was by Ignace. And if you're ever driving through Northern Ontario, you'll see signs along the Trans-Canada after you leave Thunder Bay all the way to Kenora, basically saying this is the last gas station for like 230 kilometers. Yeah. So if you need gas, you get gas here or like in the next town or whatever, because otherwise you're SOL. So that's a good number 7. I didn't have that one in there. I totally forgot about that. And whenever I drive, like, because last Christmas I drove there with my wife, and I remember telling her this story. Yeah. So good memory. Okay, what are we, number 6? All right, let's move along here. Okay, I don't know if you remember this or not. Number 6 was part of it was work, but part of it was to see friends as well. You and I were going up to Ottawa for Dominion Day, for Canada Day, in 2017 for the 150th, the Sekla whatever centennial of the Confederation, and everyone was going to Ottawa that year for Canada Day, and it was so packed on the 401, like, all the way through, like literally all the way through up to Ottawa. It was packed on the 401, and it had took us like 2 hours to get from downtown Toronto to Whitby. And finally we had called it because we had left at the end of the day, because it's only like a 5-hour drive from downtown Toronto to downtown Ottawa. And so we left, I think, at like 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. or something like that. And which is not a great time to leave the GTA anyway. But usually by Whitby, like the traffic is okay by then. And it was so packed. And on the Google Maps, it said it was going to be super packed all the way. So we just pulled over. We went to Swiss Chalet, which I hate, but you love. So we went to Swiss Chalet, and then we went to watch a movie, thinking like, okay, we're going to take a couple hours off. We're going to watch a movie, grab some supper, a couple drinks. We'll head back on the road. It'll be fine. It was still packed. And we didn't get to Ottawa until like 2 a.m.
What movie was it? Do you remember?
I don't know. It was some comedy that wasn't funny.
Some dumb. Yeah. Okay, my number 6 is a story that we talk about quite often. And I just want to preface this by saying that we love our supporters, and we love it when they put us up in their houses, and we're so grateful and humbled. But sometimes we stay at houses which are rather funny. And so this particular one was, I'm not even going to name the province that it was in, but we stayed at a house where the entire house had no plumbing. So the bathroom was sort of like a upgraded outhouse to a certain extent. And in that same house, Scott also had to sleep in a closet, like a pitch black closet with a drain hole in the middle of the closet. And I think there was a cot. Was there like a cot on the floor?
It was a mat. It was like a gym mat.
So I mean, we were young and it didn't super matter. It's just funny to think back on, kind of where we stayed and what we went through to build up this organization. And the people there were lovely, and hopefully they're still supporters of ours, but it was pretty it was a pretty rough night, specifically for Scott.
he just said good night, and then the closet door shut, and then it was just blackness, and there was the drain pipe right by my head, drip drip drip, and there was one light, and it was the green little light for their modem staring back at me. And I'm not gonna lie, in that moment I thought, like, I could be, because we've all sacrificed to do like Start Right Now or whatever, right? Yeah. And I thought, like, I could be on the golf course as the controller for that golf course, making like 120 grand a year. But here I am in the closet, which is a joke that Alissa will never stop making. And yeah, that's a good one. I had that one on my list, but I didn't have it as number 6. So
okay, what's your number 5?
Number 5. Oh, this is kind of like this is just a nice memory. Our hike that we went to in Chilliwack.
Remember that was good, but we couldn't make it to the top because it was too snowy.
Yeah, I wanted to go to that Alpine Meadow, but I mean, it was mid-October in BC, so that's to kind of be expected. Not that hard of a hike. Elk Mountain, but there were parts of it that were steep and slippery and because of the snow. But it's a nice memory. I liked it. We always try to stop over and kind of like experience the local area because we'll try to arrive at like 2 or 3 p.m. and like our presentation will be at 6 or 7. So we got a couple hours to do a little bit of work, grab a bite to eat, and explore the area. And when we're in Chilliwack, we went there, and we went to Harrison Lake too, right?
Yeah, my number 5 was again the No to Trudeau tour, but it was just me driving the bus. That's my memory, and that's one of my top 10 because the boys hated it. So I drove in the No to Trudeau bus with 2 guys from the Canadian Centre for Bioethical Reform, Jonathan Van Maren and Alex Van den Bruinhorst, and Alex was a very careful driver. Jonathan was a very slow driver, and I drove just the way that I drive my normal vehicle. So like we would be hitting air over the PI potholes or, passing in the passing lane in Toronto. So that was a good time. They didn't let me drive it too much, but it was fun when I did get to drive because it scared them so much. So
what percentage of the time do you say you would have driven that bus?
Oh, probably like 1%. Alex drove most of the way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
All right, number 4.
Number 4, right? Number 4. Okay, so this is also a Northern Ontario story, and I'm kind of surprised you didn't have this on your list, but this is the first time we went to Manitoba, Saskatchewan in 2016. So this is the autumn of 2016, and we were coming back to Ontario, and we were going through Dryden, which is in between Kenora and Thunder Bay. We just got some gas, ready to go, because I think we were staying in Thunder Bay. We were trying to stay in Thunder Bay, and we were pulling out of the Esso parking lot, and then all of a sudden, clunk, 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 flat tire. My tire got punctured completely. So just down the road was a Canadian Tire, so I could get it there, no problem. I mean, that tire was probably going to be done anyway, and they couldn't find the puncture, so I had to buy a new tire. They had to put it on, but it was also the autumn, so we had to wait because everyone's getting their summer tires taken off and their winters put on. So we had, like, this was early in the morning because leaving Winnipeg to Dryden, like, it's maybe like maybe 4-hour drive. Like, it's not that far of a drive. And so we had all day, basically. We had to wait in Dryden, and right beside the Canadian Tire was a Pizza Hut. And we pulled up to eat the buffet, like the $10 Pizza Hut buffet. And
they don't do that anymore.
Because of us.
Rest in peace.
It's a $10 buffet, and we were there for like 8 hours, and I probably did at least 10 rounds going back and forth. A little bit of salad.
Nice. They were good.
Yeah,
people.
little bit of salad to trick my body to think like, oh, he's being reasonable, but it was mostly Pizza Hut pizza.
Yeah. My number 4 was again another Noted Trudeau story, and it was with Alex van den Broenhorst, and we went to the flower pots in New Brunswick, and and it was so muddy, and I think as a joke I just kind of like took some mud and just kind of like kicked it at him or whatever, and then he takes mud and then chucks it at me, and so then I chucked it back, and we ended up being full of mud, like children playing outside in the rain. But we were full of mud, and it was really funny, and I think I definitely won the mud fight. Hopefully he's not listening to this, but you lost, I win, and I have the pictures to prove it because he had way more mud on him. So
maybe that's why you have such nice skin, right? You got all that New Brunswick mud. Just there you go. In. That's right.
Number 3.
Number 3. Again, this is kind of just like a nicer one. It was the same time I was down in Nova Scotia myself, doing work for RightNow, doing a few different presentations and whatnot, which is also interesting because I think that was the time that I did a presentation in St. John. And so the first time we did a presentation in St. John, I had 2 people come out. And then the next time we did a presentation in St. John, we had 5 people come out. And then the next time we did a presentation in St. John, we had 60 people come out. And then with Fateen, we did that presentation and there was like 300 people in St. John. So this is why we go to these places, because eventually we build. And it's just kind of that, I'm not going to call it grunt work, but it's grinding work that frankly people in the pro-life movement, at least politically, haven't done maybe ever, that our American counterparts have done, or British counterparts. So anyway, there I am in New Brunswick, doing the groundwork, trying to build the base right across the country. And I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to take the weekend for myself. I paid for it myself, no reimbursement from RightNow. And I decided to get a nice little bed and breakfast just south of Halifax in Lunenburg because it was the off season in February. It was very inexpensive. They had this, and I took you there, Alissa, for Thanksgiving, because we had to spend Thanksgiving away from our families that year when we were working. And they had this amazing clam chowder, this beer that they brew just down the street or whatever. I got to just kind of walk around Lunenburg, and it was kind of like 10 degrees, misty, a little bit rainy. I just love that weather on the East Coast, and I just really enjoyed my time in Lunenburg. They have the best scallops in the world. If you like scallops, go to Lunenburg, have them, but beware, it'll ruin scallops for you forever, because you'll never want another scallop again, because they just can't compare.
All right, my number 3 is again from the Noted Trudeau tour, not as nice and fun as yours, but at the very end of the tour, we had been in the bus together, the 3 of us, for 2 months. We were just so tired. We stayed at different people's houses every night. We were traveling constantly, doing our presentations, speaking to people. It was just totally exhausted. We were totally exhausted by the end of it. And we were driving home and we got a flat tire on the bus. So we had to go to the mechanic, and similar to what happened in Dryden, he had to fix the tires on this bus. And I was so done with it. I looked over at them while we were sitting in the waiting room and I said, guys, can I just fly home? And they were like, yeah, no problem. The 2 of us will keep each other company. We'll drive home. And so I literally called a taxi. The taxi took me to the airport, and I booked the next flight and was out of there. And I've never done that before. And it was an interesting and freeing experience. Very expensive. Don't recommend it. But that is my number 3. Probably won't ever do it again. Yeah.
Number 2. I really like this one. And that was, remember in 2017, went down to DC for the Leadership Institute, and we decided to do
the Koch brothers pay for all our activism.
Yeah,
according to the media.
The pro-abortion Koch brothers, pay for us to do that.
Yeah.
No, we did it. We considered an investment for RightNow, and we learned a lot there at the campaign training school and the fundraising school as well. And so they were week long each, and in between was a weekend. And when you go to Leadership Institute, part of your fees is that you get to stay at these pretty decent dorms that are part of the Leadership Institute, and is relatively inexpensive. It just helps for people from across the country, around the world to come. So anyways, we contacted them. We said, like, hey, we like to stay for the fundraising school, but we don't really want to pay for a hotel in DC. maybe this is something they'll teach in fundraising school now. And can we just stay at the dorms? We'll pay an extra little bit. And they said, you can stay at the dorms, no charge. Just, make sure you clean up after yourselves. And so we spent the whole weekend. There's a Trader Joe's right beside us. We got nacho chips and dips, and we spent the whole weekend in the basement because we had the whole dorms to ourselves, and we just crushed like a whole entire season of the OC.
I still haven't finished that show, but it's on Netflix or
it's on Prime,
Amazon Prime or something now.
Yeah,
so I'll
it's
have
on
to
Prime.
finish it. Yeah,
you have all summer. You have the rest of your mat leave. Let's go. Come on. How's it end?
Okay, my number 2 is when I was in BC doing presentations. I drove from Calgary to BC multiple occasions during the 2019 federal election, and I did a speaking tour across the province, and I had these pro-abortion protesters stalk me and come to every single one of my events, and they screamed. They put like fake blood on their pants. They had signs. They were just absolutely insane and super dedicated. And the thing about it is that when they do that, it creates way more media attention. So way more people knew about my speaking engagements. I was able to do way more media, so talk about the issue. So that was my number 2 because of just how it went from a normal kind of low-key speaking tour to a very big deal. And that was thanks to those protesters. So I have it as a fond memory.
There you go. I think after that happened, we got way more people at our presentations from there on after, definitely. If I remember, for your tour. Yeah. My number 1 we already talked about, which was sleeping on the floor and going in and coming out of the closet. So there's number 1. What's your number 1?
My number 1 again is just very generic. It's just meeting all the amazing people across the province. Some of the people that we've met.
Suck up.
Some of the people that we've met. Some of the people that we've met are still like some of our closest friends, like Michael and Dave that you mentioned. We met those guys doing our speaking engagements and staying at people's houses, getting to hear their stories. There's some elderly people that we stayed at their houses, and they have some epic stories of getting arrested or adoption, of different crazy situations. So just sitting in the breakfast table in the morning, listening to them talk about their lives, their families, what they've done in the movement. It's all really, really cool and inspiring. And that could be a top 10 in and of itself, like the top 10 stories we've heard. But that definitely is my number 1 because it makes it really exciting. And it just really rejuvenates me when, you've traveled all day long, you've done your speaking engagement, and you're really exhausted, but this really gives you the excitement that you need to keep going. So it might be a suck up thing, but it really is true. I love all the people that we get to meet on a regular basis in this job, for sure.
Basically over half the people in our 30,000 plus database, right? People that we physically met face to face on the road, or people we've met face to face on the road that they then kind of evangelized for us, so to speak, and get their friends and family and involved as well who are pro-life. So, and that's how we're going to continue doing this, right? Like now that the COVID restrictions are gone, like we're a little bit older and married with kids, and so it's a little more difficult for us. But there's just, you're right, Alissa, you cannot beat those face-to-face interactions. That's where we find our best supporters. That's where we find our best financial investors, our donors. And that's what the Canadian pro-life movement needs to do, especially politically. So, well, yeah, Alissa, that was a really great top 10. And thanks for listening to our podcast today. You can find us wherever you find your podcasts normally. We're on YouTube, Apple Podcasts. We're on Rumble as well, a number of different other platforms. And so we really appreciate joining us this week. And from Alissa and myself, we will see you next week, and enjoy the rest of your week. Bye for now.
We live in a world that grows through communication.
Every connection comes from a dream to be heard and realized.
To welcome a better future. What are your dreams?
LaRosse Media will help communicate your vision through our professional video production services and marketing strategies.
Start building connections to your future audience. Visit larossemedia.com
and be sure to check out our extended service options.
Dream, produce, market, succeed with LaRosse Media.
Serving Canada from coast to coast to coast.